radio
The
show.
Word on Wealth Radio Network.
The airing of this program by this station is not an endorsement or recommendation by the station of the products or services discussed in the program. The station does not guarantee the results of any investments made by a listener to this program.
This is The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary is a San Diego financial solutions attorney protecting people like you. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future. Now, here's Gary.
Happy Friday. Welcome to the Word on Wealth. This is my favorite season of the year, and I know many of my listeners agree with me that, coming up to the Christmas holidays is just a super special time when people acknowledge that family is important, acknowledge that it's time to be happy, and we set up for it and we get prepared for Christmas. I love them. Well, have you ever wondered how to truly find joy? You are listening to Finding Joy Friday on the Word on Wealth, and we are seeking and trying to find ways to actually find joy in life. And I have a very special guest with me. I had him on the show a month or so ago. Scott Phelps is with A&M Partnership. And we're going to be talking about how to truly find joy and how to help our teenagers across the nation, how to get that message and give them specific steps on how to do so. So listen up to this program and you will learn that. I want to welcome Scott Phelps to the show. How you doing, Scott?
Terrific. Thanks so much for having me, Gary.
Oh, I'm just glad you take the time to do this. I know you got a lot going on with, just kind of your itinerary and kind of crossing the nation back and forth to help teenagers understand about this process to find joy and get prepared for marriage. And I love the fact that you've taken the time to be here. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And yeah, it's more what we do is we really try to equip and encourage parents and educators and pastors and people in positions of leadership and authority, primarily parents as the primary authority in their children's lives. We try to equip them with proper, healthy messaging that they can then transmit to their kids that brings life and joy and fulfillment and all of that. So really our message isn't direct to kids, although sometimes it is. It's primarily helping adults communicate clearly on these issues to their kids. Right
to the source that the kids should be able to take advantage of and trust. So I love that. That's wonderful. And let me ask a question on that. Sometimes as parents of teenagers, we just find a difficult time talking about things that, about sexual activity, about sexuality, about, proper behavior, about manners and stuff. And sometimes it really gets difficult as a parent and you think, gosh, this teenager, what am I going to do? And yet sometimes it seems like that it's the youth leaders, the youth pastors and counselors that sometimes they'll actually have a better position or be in a better position to help these youth. Is that the case?
I think it's both and, I think that certainly parents need to be in communication with their kids about these things, but then they need clear support from teachers and pastors and so forth. There needs to be a consistency of messaging across those different authorities. But for parents, it doesn't have to be a big, heavy duty, sex talk. What it needs to be is just a regular avenue of communication. And there's ways that parents can just very easily and organically communicate things. So, for example, I think one of the best examples, perhaps, is you're watching a movie and you're watching a movie together, which is a good thing to do as a family, right? You've got your kids there. And maybe there is, not surprisingly, sort of the obligatory non-marital sexual activity scene, whether it's explicit or implicit, so they don't really show it. But let's say it's a romance and the two couples get together, or the couple gets together and they go into the bedroom, and there's no marriage in it, for example. Well, and that's the end of the movie. But I might say to my kids or something, that's a good movie, except for that part where, they were sexually active before they were married or something like that. Simple,
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have had opportunities like that with my kids to say things like that just to be clear and express your values or your view on that to them, and not just let everyone sort of drink that in as normative. So, or I might say something like, that was a really good movie. The only thing that was really lacking was, I was really hoping they would actually get married at the end, because that's really, such a beautiful thing. So many movies now, used to always end with, they walk down the aisle and they live happily ever after. But it's very hard to find movies now where there is that. And conversely, if the movie does have that, if they do end up getting married, and you celebrate it, oh, it was a great movie, I really love the part where, you see what I'm talking about. So there's ways that you can just be encouraging your kids, guiding your kids through this, media maze in a very sort of simple, organic way.
I love how you're explaining that, there's a lot of what we do to teach our children is we're with them. We're with them having common experiences, and you can see how they respond to common experiences that you're experiencing, and how they interact, between themselves if you have multiple children, or how they interact with you, or how do they respond to things. But if you don't ever have those experiences together, you're right. I mean, how does your child kind of see, wow, how did dad respond to that? Is he blushing? Is he upset about that? That really made me uncomfortable. I wonder how dad feels, or wonder how mom feels. Interesting. Yeah. I remember that's kind of been my wife and my theory really with our kids, is be with them and have these common experiences, and then share. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to turn on the TV ever again. That was awful. It's like, because then the kids go, oh, okay, I won't do that with mom again. But I remember having a just real quick So a really interesting experience. My daughter, when she was 13, she was a sweetheart, and she said, "Dad, let's go to one of I love James Bond. Let's go watch a James Bond movie." And so you kind of know where we're going with this. So there I am with my 13-year-old daughter watching this movie. We absolutely loved it. And then it gets to the, almost the obligatory James Bond sex scene. And my daughter just goes, oh, she reminds me now. She goes, "Dad, you remember we were watching that movie together?" I said, "Yes, I do." And she goes, "That was so uncomfortable during the sex scene." I said, "It really was." She goes, "Gosh, that movie is great, except for that. It's just too bad they have to stick those in. I guess we just have to cover our eyes and not look at that stuff." So it was a common experience that if I hadn't had that, it wouldn't be like, "So did you go watch a James Bond movie? Was there a bad scene in it that you should have taken out?" But I had that common experience. That was kind of fun. Scott, I appreciate you being with me. We're going to have you again after this short break. So we're going to take a quick break. Listeners, when we get back, we've got Scott Phelps from A&M Partnership. The way to get a hold of him and look at his training materials is ampartnership.org. You can look at some of his materials over the break. And when we get back, I'm going to ask Scott some very specific questions about kind of teaching methodologies, things that he has figured out that really work to help us as parents and grandparents, youth leaders, pastors, all that, to kind of get into this program and help our children learn how to get themselves set up for healthy marriage. We'll be right back here on The Word on Wealth.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We are here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com. 855-500-TRUST. You're saving and investing for the future, and that's good. Have you ever stopped to think, where does my money actually go? This is Faith-Based Investing with Anthony Wright.
Most Christian families don't understand this one thing. The money that you're saving for retirement helps fund the abortion industry as well as other liberal anti-family causes. It's the sad, dirty little secret of American investing world. And here's the good news, though. You probably also didn't know that just a few minutes of your time, and we'll screen and clean your investments for you. There's no cost, no obligation. Learn the truth about your own investment mix. Then the choice is yours. Remember, the word says when God's money is in the hands of the righteous, the people rejoice. Well, we also are fiduciary investment advisor representatives. That means that our firm makes a pledge to always act in your best interest. Go to BibleSafeInvesting.com. Download a free copy of my book, Faith-Based Investing, or call me at 931-RETIRED. And please don't forget, listen to Faith-Based Investing this weekend right here on Family Talk.
Gary, how do you and your team help our listeners avoid probate?
Well, first of all, probate is a process that involves attorneys, judges, and sometimes contesting parties. And so we try to avoid probate at pretty much all costs. The way we do that is setting up living trusts, setting up properly documented wills, putting the property like houses, cars, bank accounts in that trust so that it avoids probate. Probate is only necessary if the estate plan isn't set up quite right. So we help them get it set up right. And mainly that's done through a properly created living trust.
Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free initial consultation.
Right.
That's gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Who will you trust with the biggest financial decision of your lifetime? If you're planning to buy or sell a home in San Diego County, do what I do and work with the true San Diego real estate experts. Ken Pecos and the Pecos Group helped me and my family. They can help you. This is Gary Quackenbush of The Word on Wealth. You hear Ken every week here on The Word on Wealth. He's our expert. He's got integrity, exceptional service, deep knowledge of the San Diego, Coronado, and South Bay regions. These are just some of the reasons that Ken Pecos has completed hundreds of transactions. He manages a powerful team of professionals at the Pecos Group. From single-family attached homes to luxury high-value waterfront properties to apartment buildings, Ken Pecos is ready to help you avoid problems and costly mistakes. Learn more online at kenpecos.com. That's Ken Pecos, Pecus.com. Or call 619-977-8419.
DRE number 010566969, brokered by eXp Realty.
This is
Broadcast outreach, The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Call or click to request your free initial consultation or to talk with a member of the team. Call Gary at 855-500-TRUST, gqlaw.com.
All right, good to have you along. Happy Friday here on Friday, Finding Joy Friday show of The Word on Wealth. We have a very special guest, and that is we have Scott Phelps from the A&M Partnership. We've been talking about spreading the word and helping people in position to teach teenagers. That would be, parents, leaders, pastors, and teachers. Give them the tools that they need to be able to teach our younger generation, our up and coming generation, how to prepare themselves for marriage and understand the value of marriage and their sexuality. And that's what we are talking about right today on Finding Joy Friday. If you have questions, we're going to open the lines for the next little while. It's going to be 888-344-1170, and you can be part of the show. Scott, so the question I had specifically was what tools have you made available, and what have you seen that really works as far as the success in the work that you're doing, the success where you've had success in providing the education to leaders, parents, pastors, and teachers? What has worked for you so that we can kind of understand the message and your implementation of it?
Well, thank you. Yes. And the programs that we provide, so we have a curriculum division with 5 different workbooks that can be used with students in grades 6 through 12. That can be done at home, that can be done at a school, that can be done at a church. Lots of different, sometimes kids will go through it on their own. We also have online learning through our curriculum division. So The reason the programs work so well, Gary, is because it's just clear, straightforward truth. And kids are living in a very murky, gray, confusing culture. And when you provide a very clear, no nonsense explanation to them of these things, it makes so much sense to them. It comports with their nature, and they respond to it extremely well. We were just looking at some information that came out of a school in the Knoxville, Tennessee area that used our programs. We have what's called a pre-post test, where they can run a survey with the kids before they take the program, and then they run the same survey essentially after the program to see if their, thoughts and attitudes have changed about reserving all sexual activity for marriage, which is the main point of the program. And the research that we just saw, we have a graph that shows that prior to the program, 90% of the respondents said, I either have no, so the question was, I plan to save all sexual activity for marriage. Prior to the program, 90% of the kids surveyed said either I don't know or no. So no or I don't know. Most of it was I don't know. It was about 23% no and 63% I don't know and 10% yes. So 90% no. After the program, it was an exact flip, 90% yes. 5% I don't know, 5% no. So it's just a giant. So we were actually sharing that research with a research group that is getting ready to do another research project on our program here in the Chicago area where we're located. And the researchers looked at the data from the Knoxville, Tennessee group, and they said, this is what we do for a living. We do research on programs like yours all over the country. We've never seen anything like this. And I said, I think the reason why our programs work so well and why we get such dramatic responses is because we're just extremely clear, and we draw a very clear line. It's black and white. It's not gray. It's not mushy. It's not confusion. We cut through the confusion, and the confusion is thick out there. And there's something very warming and appealing to young people today when you provide for them that kind of clarity.
Well, so I know people are thinking this, well, but Scott, don't we? I mean, we have sex education as an option in our classrooms. Why isn't that helping, or how does that help, or is it exactly the opposite?
So yeah, it's exactly the opposite. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is so much of what our kids are being taught today through sex education is very confusing. And so there's in fact, I was on a TV show out in your area, out in LA, a couple of years ago called The Doctors, and I was discussing all of this with a sex education expert. We are abstinence education, which is the opposite of sex education, so alternative to sex education. And I made the point, I said, look, I don't know of a single sex education program in America that will even give kids the option of saving all sexual activity for the context of marriage. That's the essential message of our program. That is the message of our program, that there are benefits for you, for your spouse, for your child, for your culture, for your community, if you reserve all sexual activity for the context of marriage. I said, I don't know of a single sex education program in America that will even provide waiting until marriage as an option. And you know what she said? She said, you're right, we don't teach that. And so my point is, when you say to kids, you know, all kinds of mush. So for example, let me just give you this. So there isn't a school in America that will say we don't teach abstinence. But what do they mean by that? Typically what they mean, I was just looking at a curriculum yesterday. Typically what they mean by that is, you know, just don't go all the way, in other words.
Right.
And don't go all the way. And in order to go all the way, quote unquote, you should wait until you're older. You should wait until you're in love. You should wait until you're mature. You should wait until you take this, 20-point Cosmo Girl quiz. So there's just all this sort of vagarity out there that, you should wait a little while, or you just don't go all the way. Our program, on the other hand, says, no, it's best if you reserve all sexual activity for the context of a marriage relationship. Do you have a ring on your finger? If you don't, the answer is no. If you do, the answer is yes. So that kind of clarity is what I'm talking about.
Okay. Now on that, and that makes a lot of sense because we really we really don't have, I mean, I live in California. We don't have sex education. We have contraception education. It's like, oh, it's going to happen anyway. And so then it appears to me, and we kind of mentioned this a little bit before, it appears to me that there's this really confusing, whether it's a confusing message or not, that kids have never been taught that there is actually an option that you don't have to have sex on a date, and that when you are, quote, dating somebody, that means you're having sex all the time. It's like they don't understand. They think that's the case. Whereas in these education programs, it's like, well, that's actually not really what dating is. That has really nothing to do with it. They're just ways to determine that. And I'll tell you one thing that I'd love to do. I'm looking at your materials that you have that are available, which are really wonderful. And the one that kind of caught my eye in looking through your materials was the grade 10 to 11, the Navigator Guide, where you talk about different topics. And I would like you to address these a little bit, just to kind of give us a little bit of a kind of a flavor for what these programs involve. Because you have survival skills, sexual decision-making, preparing for future marriage and family. Talk about that a little bit about, and I know specifically in that Navigator program, maybe the grades 10 to 12 or 10 to 11.
Yes, exactly. So what we want to do, so we came up with the term navigator with the idea of, what we really want to do is help young people kind of navigate their way through life in a way that is successful. So the subtitle is Finding Your Way to a Healthy and Successful Future. What we're doing is giving young people guidance. It's really at the end of the day, it's not about sex. It's about how to get to your future without being compromised by a whole host of risk behaviors, including sexual activity. So that's really what the point of the workbook is going to do, is kind of give them practical skills and lessons as to how to accomplish that. All of the programs, including Navigator, are going to teach what's called the success sequence. And the success sequence is very simply what researchers at the think tanks have identified as 3 simple steps. If we can help young people, A, get an education, and then get a job so that they're not dependent on their parents or the government for, government dependency in any way, food stamps, poverty. So get an education, get a job, and then marry prior to having children. If you can do those 3 things, what the researchers say, all the data shows that you will succeed. You will not be in poverty, you will not be dependent on the government, but you will be able to form a healthy and successful future marriage and family. And so that's called the success sequence. And all of our workbooks are going to move students in that direction. And
2 minutes.
See, this is where the clarity comes in, because it's not just that our young people today are exposed to sexual imagery in the media. It's that all of the information that they're downloading, whether it's through their school or through the media, exposes them to sexual material without any real reference to the context of marriage. When they're watching TV or watching things on the internet, what they're seeing is completely out of context, and they don't ever really get to learn about the proper role, the beneficial role of sex within the context of a marriage relationship. So that's why we're called A&M, the Abstinence and Marriage Education Partnership, is because we want to teach young people about the benefits of marriage for them and for their community, and why that, and especially for their children. That children raised in a married 2-parent home are going to
1 minute.
better chance at success in life than those who aren't. That's just factual information. And we want to help them walk through that and learn these things so that they can prepare well for a healthy future marriage and family.
I appreciate that. I would love to, okay, you guys, first of all, we got Scott Phelps from the Abstinence and Marriage Partnership, mpartnership.org, where you can get access to his materials. Scott, can you stay on for a little bit more, probably another 12 minutes? Because I've got some more questions where I didn't quite get to. Can you stay on for a little bit longer right through the break?
Yeah,
All
no
right.
problem.
So we're going to take a quick break. And we come back. We're going to look at some of Scott's curriculum materials a little bit, because I've got some specific questions. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I'm also going to go a little bit younger and ask him some questions, related to homeschool and how these curriculums and materials can be used, even in a place like California. We'll be right back here on The Word on Wealth.
You've got questions. We've got answers. This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary's here to give you peace of mind with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary to build, protect, and transfer your wealth. 855-500-TRUST. GQlaw.com.
Have today's economic conditions and high inflation made it difficult for you in retirement? Hi, I'm Shane Sletter, the mortgage advisor on The Word on Wealth. You hear me with Gary Quackenbush, answering your questions every Tuesday at 2 p.m. For over 20 years in San Diego, I've specialized in home financing solutions for seniors as they get older and their families. If you qualify, a reverse mortgage allows you to convert part of your home equity into either a lump sum, line of credit, or much needed monthly income. You're insured and protected against ever owing more than the value of your home. And you don't have to sell your home, give up title, or get new conventional mortgage financing with monthly payments. The program is designed to make it easier for seniors to qualify. I will walk you through every step of the process. To receive a free reverse mortgage guide by mail, text REVERSE to 858-683-1716, or give me a call on my direct number, 858-683-1716.
Licensed with the state of California. NMLS ID number 239958. DRE number 01174642.
You're not alone. Ask for the legal help you need. Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's GQlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Welcome to The Word on Wealth. Happy Friday. We are on Finding Joy Friday, and we've got our special guest, Scott Phelps from the Abstinence and Marriage Partnership. Scott, what is the easiest way? People want to get access to the materials, to the game plans that you've set out. What is the easiest way they can do to get access to that material?
Yes, thank you. For our curriculum division, it's successsequence.com. Successsequence.com. They can go there for any of the curriculum materials, the workbooks, or the online learning programs are there as well.
Okay.
So successsequence.com is where they can get information on the curriculum.
Okay, successsequence.com. Great. I just happened to be there. Talk to me a little bit about, I know we're talking specifically about teenagers. I'm wondering about two other groups. I'm wondering, with your recommendation of what you found, how early do you start talking about these things? And I know most of your game plan is starting at grade 7. That's the first thing called game plan. But is this material that we should start like teaching earlier than that? Like if kids are being homeschooled or something like that. And then the other question is to the opposite side of that is, kids, unmarried kids, 18 to 25 or 30, they're kind of in that, that real important part of life, the first job, maybe the second job, trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life. And it just seems like all this stuff, this applies all over the place. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Very much so. So the first question in terms of how young and with homeschooling and so forth, I'm not an advocate of rushing this, particularly early. I always felt like my goal was to sort of preserve my kids' innocence as long as possible. But, they're unfortunately exposed to these things at earlier and earlier ages. So what I say to parents of younger children, let's say prior to 6th or 7th grade, if your kids are younger than that, what I encourage parents to do is get some of our materials and read through it all for yourself. I don't think they're old enough to go through it yet, but you can sort of be preparing yourself for where they're going. And then as you see, it's going to be different for every child, for every family, right? It just depends on the context of the family environment, how much are the kids exposed to and so forth. So some kids we're going to have to get to a little bit earlier, and some kids we can wait a little bit more if they have a very, strong protective environment. So it really is up to the parents, but I would encourage parents to read through the material as much as possible so that they can then kind of walk their kids into it as they're ready, as it's appropriate for them.
Excellent.
So that's what I find to be most helpful. And then what was your question about the 18
Excellent.
to 22s?
Yeah, I mean, there's an age group of kids that we kind of like, it's almost like, well, you're 18, you're out of high school, you're off to college or not, and you're living at home or not, and you're an adult and you got your own thing to do. And it's like, I think more kids have trouble during that period of time, honestly, than they do when they're in school still.
Well, okay, so you bring up a very good point here, and that is that the messages that we're communicating is typically seen as something for the middle school grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. Most educators feel like that's where they want to do this. And what tends to happen is the upperclassmen in high school, the juniors and seniors, tend to get left out. If they missed it or it's been a few years since they've had it, that's my point is I think that the upperclassmen, the juniors and the seniors are the ones who really need it most. If you said to me, hey, Scott, I give you one shot, where are you going to go? I would probably go to the seniors in high school because of what you're just saying. It's kind of our last shot to really get to them before they launch out into adulthood. And it's really where they're starting to consider most significantly, where they're going. So I'm not against teaching it in the younger grades, but unfortunately, it's almost never really addressed in the upper grades. And that's where I really want to make sure that we get the kids before, because you're right. I think once they do get out of high school, once they get into college, once they're on that college campus, if they haven't already sort of thought through these things and developed some convictions about this, I've made a decision that I'm not going to be pressured into sexual activity prior to marriage. If they haven't sort of made that commitment, it's going to be much more difficult for them when they get in a pressure situation to have that sort of confidence.
I love that. Okay, that's we're on the same page on this. I really, really appreciate that. If you guys have any questions for Scott Phelps, I want you to, his material that's available that we're talking about specifically is successsequence.com, successsequence.com. You can look on the materials, learn more about him, learn more about A&M Marriage Partnership. Now, I have so many more questions, but let me do this. I heard from Noah recently that you had something going on where you ended up in the news. And I wanted to know, kind of tell us the latest about what's going on with A&M partnership. How's the word getting out? How's that going?
Well, good. I don't recall what he's talking about being in the news. We try to stay out of the news.
Yeah.
we really try to just keep our head down and keep working, you know?
Yeah.
And so we really don't get into too much public stuff. It's really much more equipping of educators, and we do a very good job with that. We have educators who come to our training workshops, and we train them and encourage them and help them to teach these things well. So, yeah, I'm not sure what the reference is to being in the news, though. Unfortunately,
and I think it was actually I don't, because I'm because Noah's my friend, and he's the one that set this up, and he sent me a message and he said, ask him about the news story that I sent. I'm going, well, what does that mean? So I guess I don't.
He's talking about a particular article. He was talking about, he did email you and I both an article about sex education that he wanted us to be able to chat about, but
that's fine.
It's just another article about the problems of sex education. So we can spend quite a bit of time on that. But
I bet.
I think one of the things that I may have mentioned to you last time is that the real problem I have with sex education is, like I said, that there's no mention of marriage in it. And I don't know how you have conversations with young people about sexual activity without talking about marriage. But that's the biggest problem with sex education, is that it's all about sex and nothing about marriage. And you're exposing young people to, in some cases, very explicit information that is not what they need to be learning.
You know, it's interesting when you get into kind of this whole conversation. I mean, I am so happy to be a grandfather and have my kids are married and they have their own children, and this is the kind of stuff that my kids are running into now, which is, it's nice that I'm not anymore. I like being in the position I'm in now rather than trying to raise kids the way it is now. Although I do help, but it's so interesting that, you know, like you're saying, you know, even if you just really pounded on the, you know, abstinence and don't do this, and, you know, even if you kind of set ground rules and all that stuff, there's still the focus, it seems, is really so important. Is like, you guys were not taught this in any political circles or in school or anything. Marriage is awesome. I know the divorce rate is incredibly high. It's really sad that it's that high, but I talk to people all the time that they had to go through the divorce process. It was a horrible situation from whatever. Okay. But then but what do? They go at it again, right? They go back and they get married again, and they're on their second marriage and they're enjoying it. And maybe it even worked out better. But
2 minutes.
I always thought it was so fascinating to me that, yes, the divorce rate's high, but I would love a statistic on the remarriage play, because they're like going, I really liked marriage. And I'm so, I wish it had worked out and all these things and our differences or whatever, and we got divorced, but I want to try it again. And I just think the message, you know, I don't want kids to have, which I think they get a lot of times, is like, you know, oh, marriages fail and your parents are divorced and you don't want to ever go through a divorce. It's like, no, there were good times. Do better, be a better spouse, learn to be a better spouse. And a lot of it comes from exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, you're right on it now, Gary. And you know, this is a whole other show because there's so much involved in this, what you just brought up. And we could look at the increase in divorce rates post-sexual revolution, right? So that as the sexual revolution unfolds and the sexual activity with multiple partners outside the context of marriage increases,
1 minute,
does the divorce rate. It just makes so much sense. And what I try to help young people understand then is, yes, divorce is not something that anyone wants. And everything that we're teaching you mitigates against that. So what we're teaching you are things that will help you enter into a healthy future marriage that will last.
I love it.
So
I love it. It's like stop the cycle. You know, stop the cycle of divorce. Stop the cycle of bad marriage. Stop the cycle of don't being married. You know, just let's put this back the way God intended, the way society really was developed. Let's put it back there. And I'm just really glad to have Scott Phelps, the A&M partnership.org, and the materials that they're offering up on successsequence.org. You guys get on there, look at his stuff. Scott, I really appreciate it. We're going to have you back. We got a lot more to talk about. We could do this for years. Thank you, Scott. All right, we'll be right back here on the Word on Wealth.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We're here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Gary, how do you and your team help our listeners avoid probate?
Well, first of all, probate is a process that involves attorneys, judges, and sometimes contesting parties. And so we try to avoid probate at pretty much all costs. The way we do that is setting up living trusts, setting up properly documented wills, putting the property like houses, cars, bank accounts in that trust so that it avoids probate. Probate is only necessary if the estate plan isn't set up quite right. So we help them get it set up right. And mainly that's done through a properly created living trust.
Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free initial consultation. That's gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Imagine you're a lonely single teenage mom saying to yourself, I have nothing for this baby. Imagine trying to survive and struggling just to put clothes on your newborn. Right here in San Diego County, a volunteer outreach organization collects and distributes new and gently used clothing, blankets, and more. And it meets the heartfelt needs for community, dignity, and hope. Discover Gently Hugged. Learn more. Give and volunteer now at gentlyhugged.org.
When it comes to protecting your home and assets with a will or trust, we'll fight.
Ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Successsequence.com. You really should go there. If you're a grandparent, a parent, if you're a kid, and you want to know about what the Abstinence and Marriage Education Partnership is about, these guys are really making a difference. I'm so happy that we were able to have Scott on, and he's been on a couple times. This is a second visit with me, and it won't be the last. He's got a lot. He's got a big message. He's got a lot to do, and I am just super happy to be associated with a guy like Scott Phelps. So kudos, really appreciate it. And thank you, Noah, for setting that up. Really, really appreciate it. We got a little bit left to the show, not much, but I want to bring up a couple of points, some follow-up to some of the stuff we were talking about yesterday. You know, the Word on Wealth is all about really helping you, our listeners, just be better prepared for life and for things that you're doing. There was a saying, this is by a church leader who was a government leader and just like this really outstanding guy that I really loved some of the stuff that he said. And I remember and this is years and years ago, and it stuck in my head. he said, you have to stop to do the things you need to do along the way. And to me, that was, it was like, well, wait a minute, aren't I supposed to, stop and smell the roses and stop and have a good time and whatever? And he was like, no, you need to stop and do the things you need to do along the way and figure out what that means. And whatever that means for you, you have to be able to, instead of just racing along and, moving along at our pace, like we all have our own pace. We all get moved forward. And sometimes we have to move forward, faster than our regular pace, and it's very uncomfortable. And sometimes we have to move slower, and that's uncomfortable, and sometimes we can find our little, our own pace, and we feel good. But we have to take the time to do the things we need to do along the way, because some things just have to be done. The law compels us to do certain things to try to get us to behave in certain ways. If you don't think that laws are kind of, that if you don't think laws dictate morality, then you're not, they do. Okay, that's the bottom line. People say, oh, you can't dictate morality with laws. It's like, well, actually we do. It's just to what extent? I mean, we're told, why am I supposed to wear a seatbelt, right? Is it to protect me, or is it protect the insurance company from having to pay a claim? Is it to protect me from my own foolishness? Why do I have to belt in my kids? Is that because they're trying to protect, the government is trying to protect them from me because of my crazy decisions and my bad driving? Or is the government, trying to protect them because I'm not smart enough to tell my kids to put on a seatbelt in case I get into a wreck? There's a lot of regulations. I mean, we have laws. Is there a law that I have to stay on my side of the road because I'm too stupid to, but I'll drive in the front of another car? Well, no, these are all things that help us get organized. I mean, it is important to have rules. It's important to have laws and those type of things. And some of the laws have to do with our own, moral behaviors, and, that it just happens. So, having rules and having to stop to do the things along the way and obey certain rules, or kind of comply with certain inevitabilities, that's just part of our life. It's part of, it's just part of being a person and living our life. I mean, I know there's a lot of, really cool terms for it. They call it adulting, adulting.com, how to be an adult. It's like, I'm not really sure that some of those are really right on target, but I think it's moving in the right direction. But as far as it's being responsible, and I think when we say, oh, I'm adulting, that means I'm being responsible. So I hope we all do that. And I hope we all stay a kid until we die also, so that we can have fun and enjoy. So take the time to do the things along the way you need to do. Like, for example, take the time to train your kids, some of the stuff we were talking about earlier on the show. Take the time to educate yourself, to be prepared to teach your kids in those opportunities when they come up. You got to be prepared to be a parent. And as you go along, you learn more and more as a responsible person to take care of your family or to take care of yourself. I mean, if you became incapacitated and you don't have the documents, and you hear me ranting about this all the time, and hopefully not ranting, but instructing, is like, you need to have an estate plan in place. If you don't have any estate plan, then anything is better than nothing. Anything at all is better than nothing. If you have an estate plan that you did yourself and you did it years ago and you're not even sure whether it's good or not, redo it. I mean, it did its job. You're still alive. You can change it. So it's done its job the whole time. It's done what it was supposed to do. And maybe it's time to upgrade it or get a new one or something. I mean, my gosh, we upgrade our shoes and our socks and our clothing and things that wear out, and we update documents and insurance policies and titles and cars and all that. Sometimes you have to update your estate plan. It's not a waste of money. That would be like saying getting car insurance is a waste of money unless you get into a car wreck, or life insurance. That's a waste of money unless you're dead. Well, that's one way to look at it. I don't think it's really the right way. And the same thing with an estate plan. If you already spent money on an estate plan and now you need to fix it, need to redo it, you need to update it, maybe you need to change it. Maybe that's going to cost you some money. That's okay. I mean, that's just the nature of doing the things you need to do along the way. If you have your favorite estate planning attorney that's going to help you with those things, that's terrific. If you don't, I would be happy to be that person. You can just call my number, 855-500-TRUST, and let's get an appointment. Let's talk about it. Get your estate plan set up. We can usually do it within a couple of weeks. And we have really happy customers. So I would love to have you be one of our happy clients, and you can come in and meet the team with Rich and Janet, Anna and Cheryl and Taylor and me, and you can learn all about our firm and about us and whatever you want to know or don't want to know about us, and we'd be happy to help you out with your estate plan. The kind of my summary for the week of what I've found, this has been the week for seeing people that were caught off guard, learning about people who thought that there would be enough time to be able to take care of things. And some of the biggest situations that I've seen were the kind of the most difficult to deal with is where somebody gets older and things are fine and they're going to take care of it later. They're going to fix that later. They're going to do their living trust later. They're going to put their house in their trust later. They're going to think about that later. And then later starts to come, and then later comes, and all of a sudden it's like now it takes so much more energy because of health issues and the fact that, you know, instead of, you know, working 40 or 50 hours a week and then, you know, taking care of things you need to do and sleeping, you know, 6 or 8 hours and whatever, now it's like your body needs you to sleep more 10 hours or 12 hours. And you spend so much more time during the day just to keep yourself alive and your body going, because now there's certain things you need to do to keep yourself going, which is totally appropriate and totally right and totally, you know, dependent on your personal situation. But then it gets harder to do the things you need to do along the way. And sometimes I'm seeing people waiting so long that they lack the capacity or the ability to make any decisions. And it makes me so sad as an attorney when I can't help someone because they can't express themselves. Their children are saying, but Dad, you wanted to do this, right? And then they're trying to tell me that, and I'm trying to get the dad to tell me or the mom to tell me or the uncle or something like that to explain to me what their situation is and what they want. And they literally can't communicate it. Well, if they can't communicate to me as their attorney and I don't understand what they themselves are telling me, not what the kids are interpreting from, you know, the signs and things like that. It's like, do I understand what they're saying? Is this going to be something that's legally supportable? If it's too late, it's too late. And that is so sad because, you know, in most situations, that means almost all situations, it means you're going into probate. And that means if they became, you know, they are incapacitated at that point. And that means if everything wasn't arranged, that you may not be able to access their money. So the kids may be fronting out money for healthcare and for managed care and whatever, because you can't get access to the money and they can't do it because they're beyond. Okay. It's been the last couple of weeks have been super frustrating because of that issue. And I don't know why. It's not like we have a run on incapacity, but I'm seeing it a lot more. And I think it's unfortunate, man, if you're the child, you know, the son or daughter that's trying to help, you know, your mom or dad who are in their, you know, 80s and 90s, and now they're, you know, finally kind of like, okay, I got to get this taken care of. That means that you're not 30 or 40 anymore. You know, that means, you know, if they're in their 80s and 90s or 70s and 80s, that means you're going to be in your 50s and 60s and maybe 70s too. So it's not even easy for you to do, but get your stuff taken care of. You know, it's almost like it's been the couple weeks of being caught off guard type stuff where, you know, you have somebody is the successor trustee of the trust and the trust is not done quite right. It's kind of a mess. They've been struggling. And all of a sudden, the only person named in that document to be the successor trustee dies. And the document doesn't give any provision or option to appoint anyone else. So now we have to go to probate court to find someone that's going to petition and be willing to step in and do the distributions in the trust. But it's like, we can't time our own incapacity. We can't time our own death. We have no idea when it's happening. That's
2 minutes.
The whole plan. We don't know. So to take the time to do the things you need to do along the way, it's really important to do the best you can. And the best you can is the best you can. You know, you need to get an estate plan. So get it together. You know, I'm not saying you have to have life insurance or something like that. I just mean you need to have some basic estate plan. If you have a house, you need a trust. If you have children that are under 18, you need a trust. You know, you need a will with guardian designations. These are just things that it's like getting your car insurance. You buy it hoping you will never need it. You get life insurance knowing you're going to need it, but you hope you don't need it for a really, really long time. You get disability insurance and you're hoping you will never have to cash in on that disability insurance. So get your estate plan, get it set up. I'd be happy to do it. 855-500-TRUST. Well, we had a good day today on Finding Joy Friday. I want you to find joy in knowing that there are options for you. And as far as the abstinence and marriage education, that's all available. You can go to Scott Phelps' website. I'm going to remind you, you can go to the website is successsequence.com. You guys, we are, this is coming up on the weekend. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day today and you enjoy this weekend. You find lots of things around San Diego to do during holiday time that can make you happy. Hope you find joy. Hope you have a great weekend. This has been Gary Quackenbush on The Word on Wealth, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Every day, Monday through Friday, we are here on The Word on Wealth telling you all about the things you can do along the way. We'll be back on Monday. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Tell a friend about the Word on Wealth, featured since 1995. With financial solutions attorney Gary Quackenbush, an expert in estate planning, wills and trusts, and tax problem solving. Gary is past president of the California Society of Tax Consultants. Reach out to us. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future.
The information you hear on The Word on Wealth is for general information purposes only. This program discusses general financial and legal topics. Seek legal advice from a competent lawyer for your individual legal needs. The opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the views of Salem Media Group or its sponsors.
The airing of